what's happening right now is one of those things where the first little while can be withstood rather well. And what I'm talking about is the stock market plunge that's ongoing right now. What I thought was going to happen was I thought it was going to rally until about April, and then it was going to be a big fall in April. But it appears what's happening is it appears that it's actually starting to roll over more now than I expected. But here's the thing, what I want to talk about is, this is one of those things where at first, because it was so frothy, the market, frothy is the term I'll use, it had so much liquidity in it, it had so much room to fall, that it's going through that first initial room to fall right now, and it's not really striking too much fear into the market. They see it as only a correction. If this continues, it's going to start to cut deep. Now, see, all of the excess fat, the excess frothiness is all coming out of it now, and it can be withstood. And they figure, well, it's going to come to a stop pretty soon, and it's going to turn around, it's going to start going the other way, and everything's going to be just fine, hunky-dory, and nobody's too much worried right now. We got this world that we live in, I don't know how it got this way, but it's so full of complacency. People are just accept. And basically what they're doing right now is they're accepting that every day lately, the last few days, we've had a 1,000-point plunge in the market. And it's not even the top stories in the news. It's like you have to search for it in the news. It's like stories like, let me just take a quick look here in the news. Stories like the quiet diplomacy to save the Olympics in a nuclear standoff. Omarissa talks Trump on Celebrity Big Brother. You know, Celebrity Big Brother. This is more news. The Sprout Food Guide to Valentine's Day hacks. U.S. strikes in Syria. U.S. disappointed after Bermuda abolishes same-sex marriage. George W. Bush says Russia is meddling in the 2016 election. Cambodia releases 2 Canadians arrested for pornographic dancing. Stuff like this is, I don't even see it. I don't even see the story here of what's happening in the stock market. The stock market's been falling 1,000 points a day for like several days now, and there's nothing here. I don't even see it. It's not even a story. You know? But believe me, if this continues, if this fall continues and it starts to cut deep, see, the thing is it's cut through the first bit of tissue. It's almost like a man who's got leathery calluses on his hands. And what's happened is this is like a razor blade, but it's cut him, but it hasn't cut deep enough yet where he's even felt it. Because there is so much frothiness there in the market. It's got to go deeper. If we start to keep continuing with these 1,000-point drops, believe me, in a day or two more, it's going to be the top story. Because they'll start to really feel it then. The thing is they've only seen us just now going into correction territory. And so, what does all this mean anyway? This is going to continue, whether it continues now or it continues in April. The next, if they can make it through April, which I don't think they can, because they're going to raise it from 20. Right now, it was 12 billion a month up until December, and then January, February, and March. They raised it to 22 billion a month. March, April, May, and June, they're going to raise it to $32 billion a month. And if that doesn't kill it, then July, August, and September, they're going to raise it to $40 billion a month. And if that doesn't kill it, September, October, November, They're going to raise it to $50 billion a month. They're going to keep adding $10 billion a month to it. Every third month, they're going to add $10 billion more to it. So it's what you call a compounding effect. So we got through the first 3 months at $10 billion a month. We got through the first 3 months with it was barely noticeable. Now they've increased it by $10 billion a month in January. How far do we get into, at the end of January, I think they increased it. So how far do we get into February before we run into this trouble? Now, what do you think was going to happen when they raise it $10 billion a month more at the end of March? Plus, they're going to raise interest rates again. This is their plan. And I'm going to tell you, things are going to have to get hellishly worse than they are right now before they'll abandon their plan. Well, it seems like the Fed, once they get on to an idea that what they want to do, they don't like to let go of it. They really don't. It'd take an awfully severe crisis for them to say, hey, you know what, we were wrong. We need to back off on this. But here's the thing. If they do back off on any of this stuff anyway, they're going to lose complete credibility, and everything is just going to turn upside down. The dollar's going to be dead at that point if they lose credibility at this point. The only reason the dollar is maintaining as much strength as it has is because the Fed still has a certain amount of credibility. And they're buying into this whole thing about we're in an economic recovery and the Fed's doing a great job, and the Fed's pulled us out of this problem we had in 2008, and now the Fed is so wonderful and everything else. But what they don't realize is that's all built on the backs of leverage that's been put into the system by forced debt creation. They've created tremendous amounts of debt. That debt becomes a credit. That debt is a credit. But it's not really a credit because it's debt. It's too much debt. It can never be paid back. So what they're doing is they're keeping the payments going by borrowing more and borrowing more. Greece is the most perfect example of this. Because Greece has borrowed so much money that if they let Greece go down, the whole European Union will go down. So what they do is they say, here, Greece, here's $10 billion. Now hand us that $10 billion back. That's your next payment on your loan. And so what they do is then they add that $10 billion they just gave Greece to the total that Greece owes. So if Greece owes $310 billion, they add $10 billion more on their tab. It's like a bar tab, you know. And then they say, now give us that $10 billion back as your next 3 months payment on your loan. And that way they keep the loan going. And they keep Greece going. Because if Greece said, hey, you know what? We're not going to pay this. We're going to default on our loan. Well, then all of a sudden, the European Central Bank has that written on their books, that the money that Greece owes them, as a credit. Now, if they flip that into a debt that Greece has, then the European Bank would have to make up good for that, and they don't have the money. And they're not allowed to create the money for that. You see, they're allowed to create money as long as they're loaning money out. This is the power of fractional reserve banking. If a bank loans money out, they're able to create money. But on the other side of that coin is if those people that they just loan money to are not going to pay them back, now the bank has that debt on their books, and the bank can't create money for themselves to cure that debt. What they can do is they can take the money from creditors to the bank. That's called a bail-in. Or they can get money from the government, which is called a bailout. But they cannot actually create the money to solve their own internal problems. They just can't arbitrarily say, okay, our bank is in debt for $100 billion. We'll just make $100 billion and we'll loan it to ourselves. They're not allowed to loan it to themselves. They're allowed to only loan it out, not allowed to do it internally. And this is the problem for the banks, and this is why if they get these loans that they loaned out, is everything's great, that's a credit to the bank. Those people owe the bank back money that they borrowed, as long as those people are going to pay. When those people decide not to pay, well, the bank is stuck for it then. And because they don't have any money, actual money creation tools, there's only one way to fix it then, a bail-in or a bailout. Because they can't create money on their own. So listen, thank you guys for listening. This whole system is so over leveraged at this point that it's all ready to collapse. Honest to Pete, it's ready to collapse. And the only way to keep it from collapsing is to inject more money into it. And so that's the route that they're going to go. They're not going to let the system collapse. They can't possibly do that, because that would not only be everyone would starve to death, but they would starve to death too. And they would be the ones accused of letting everyone starve to death. And you know they want to be the heroes. Well, they become the heroes when they borrow a whole bunch more money and solve the situation. So this is the way they're going to go. But the problem is they've reached the limit to where if they borrow too much more money, they're going to destroy the fiat currencies. And so this is exactly what's going to happen. They're going to be forced to create more money. And when they create more money, the fiat currencies are going to die. So listen, thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you in the next article. Bye-bye for now.